When is burnout too much, and when do we have to strip back our practice? Let's talk about it. In today's video, I want to talk about our resources as witches and magical practitioners. I want to talk about strategic sorcery and magic. I want to talk about how we can help ourselves to perform better magic with fewer resources and lower energy. And I want to share with you a little bit about my practice and really when I've had to say that I don't have the spoons or the resources or the energy for that right now, and I've had to just put something on the shelf, and when it's right to do that. I want to talk about some of those things today, so get yourself a nice hot drink, settle back, relax and enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. So this is going to be really casual because I wanted to talk about this topic based on my own experiences, but also it harkens back to several other videos that I've done in the past. A lot of other people have also spoken to these topics that have arisen a lot, and I think that is in the last few years because we have as a collective been through a lot of changes, a lot of grief, a lot of sadness, a lot of horror, a lot of injustice, things that we just could not even imagine happening, and then things that have been happening for a very, very long time that we have now seen with our eyes because of social media. And it's very conflicting, it's very difficult to deal with those things, it's very difficult to, you know, process those things, the things that we've seen, and also to know how to help. And there's a whole feeling of like being useless and not knowing what to do, and all of these aspects along with as well, everything that has like come at us in the last few years. It feels like life is different, like there's a different quality to life since those years before. I almost feel like I was so naive in 2019, and I look back at that time like with rose tinted glasses, I think, because I feel like we went through like a portal or a veil or something. Like, it's wild, but it's the experience I have had and talking to other people. It really feels like we're kind of wading through sludge or slime. Like life, it has a different quality, and people talk all the time about these kind of more new age concepts about 5D and like ascension and all these things about raising the vibration, and you know, you'll hear terms like the collective used a lot, but honestly I do think there's something to it. Not necessarily all of that, but I think there's something to the fact that we're all experiencing these things, and a lot of us are feeling a certain type of way about things. And common denominators: anxiety, depression, loneliness, grief, sadness, sorrow, all of this.
Editing Emily here, and the word that just came to me was disillusionment, or like being disillusioned.
Anger, it comes along with burnout, there's trauma, there's a lot more people being diagnosed as being on the spectrum. I myself have even like come to that realization that I believe I am on the spectrum, and it is because my daughter is, and we've experienced a lot of very, very challenging behavior from her over the years, like violence and aggression from our daughter, who is now 9, and like ongoing. And I first went to my GP about my daughter and her behavior when she was 3, and she's now 9, and it has taken a very, very long time to get people to understand as well because of masking. A lot of things that I notice in her that I feel I resonate with. For instance, things that she gets upset about, or sensations and like loud noises and things, just physical things, the ways that she processes things I notice are similar. But also I have wondered about the other side of the coin and ADHD for myself, and so there's that side of things. And then there's also physically, you know, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia last year, but I've been experiencing ongoing physical pain, I guess like bouts of chronic pain for years. And even before COVID happened, I remember I would get this occasionally. I'd have these dips and I'd have to get into bed at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, like as soon as I'd finished work, and it was exhausting. Like I didn't understand, and I thought maybe it's just because I have a challenging child, or I didn't know, and I still don't know. You know, I still don't know. There are a number of things that have happened within those times as well. I've had traumatic experiences with a number of other people, and I've also had traumatic physical experiences where I've fallen and hit my head, and that's actually 2022. I fell and hit my head. I ended up in hospital, and that's when I first got COVID. And since that point as well, the trauma on my body, I went through some experiences after that where my body was like rapidly shaking at night because my body was like trying to release all the trauma, and it was wild. It still is. I still don't think there's like a rhyme or reason. Some people say that symptoms of fibromyalgia are similar to long COVID, so that could be a thing, but I know I experienced some of this before that as well, so I don't have answers. But does it really matter? I know my daughter is on the spectrum. She doesn't yet have a official diagnosis, but I know, and everyone around her knows, and we all know. At the end of the day, a label is a label, but it is useful to have, but it doesn't change it, does it? So I wanted to talk about, when is it too much? When do we need to strip things back? When do we need to step away from things that we have been trying to do or wanting to do or loving doing. And I'm talking about the things that I really, really want to do in my practice and that I've had dreams of fulfilling, like finishing studies for years and things that just have to then not get dropped but put on a shelf. And in the last few years I've put a lot of things that I have practiced on the shelf. I've put them away, I've tucked them away. And it's not that they're not part of me anymore, it's not they're not part of my practice, but day to day, they can't be the things I do. I don't want to villainize myself or like have a go at myself or bring myself down for like doing less than I think I should do or I think I know I could do. I'm not out here doing spells every day or every week, like manifesting all kinds of stuff. I did manifest I wanted last year. I made that happen, but it was hard work because it was a long process. And it was not one of these one and done spells that you see all over social media. I don't really work like that. I don't tend to do a spell that's like one and done. Most of my spells are a collection of small workings that are kind of done over time, like a campaign. And that sometimes they come together. It's like chapters, I guess, of a magic spell. You know, you can do spells for small things, sure. But like after you've done this kind of thing for a long time, is it worth it? There are a number of things you could spell for, but is it the time? I talk about spell timing in my spell video. It's really important to understand the timing because by allowing things to develop and to unfold the way they will without interfering, it's a very, very particular type of strategic magic that not many people talk about, but it is actually a thing that knowing when to cast is really important and profound. I think it's interesting because if you just hold off, you'll be surprised. You'll get weird feelings and things will happen. And sometimes, like for instance, if it's got to do with someone who's being shady, they will usually just reveal themselves. It happens, okay? So someone will just end up shooting themselves in the foot. You don't really have to bother then. And it's kind of easier. So there is a strategy to it. And it goes hand in hand as well with just keeping your protections like on point, on form, so that you don't always have to be doing things like banishing or binding spells. So that, you know, if you just have your protections like on point all the time and you're just being mindful as a sorcerer, as a witch, as a magician, you can achieve a lot more with a lot less effort. And that's, I think, what I'm getting at. But that kind of strategic sort of witchcraft has been really important for me whilst I've been retreating, wintering, going within. I mean, I've always went within, but I learnt about Carl Jung at university really, but before I learnt about the shadow, I was doing inner work and shadow work within my journals. That's what I would do. And I also did manifestation work, even though I didn't call it that then. I would rewrite stories and I'd rewrite plays to make things happen the way I wanted them to, or to rewrite something that happened so that it helped to heal something in me. I used sympathetic magic in my journals. I did things like that before I knew what they were. They were kind of innate things. And those are things that you can do when you're working in this way, but they're things that you can do as well without much effort. You don't have to have a whole elaborate ritual. You don't have to have all these massive candles and all of these spell oils, and those are awesome and I love them. And you know, I'm so glad, like I've said this before, like I had this massive drive at the end of, not last year, but the year before, I had this massive drive to make a new oil for this and new oil for that because my oils had all run out at the same time. Now I'm probably at the point where I probably need to make some more again, but I have a number of oils that are like really supportive for a number of areas because I've made them so. They have tripwires within them as well, which makes them powerful because you can utilize them in slightly different ways. So we're talking about making your magic work harder for you with less effort, really. So one of the things that I love to do, because I am a lot of the time confined to my bed in the evening times after work, I will do candle scrying and I will call my power back. If I feel my body feels quite weak or if I've been spending my time and energy worrying about something, I will call my power back with the candle flame. I will use meditative practices with a candle, with candle gazing. I offer candles as votive candles for Lilith. I also revere the Morrigan. There is always a reverence going on, but a number of these things I can do from the bed. I can do tarot readings, of course, and I don't always write them down, but if there are notes, things that I need to take forward, I will always write down action steps. There's always also the notes app that you can use. There are a number of ways in which you can make your magic work harder for you. And it comes down as well to things like getting ahead. Like I just knew I needed those oils and I knew I needed to make them really quick, and I was right, because then also all of a sudden like things got so much worse with my health And I was like, I'm so glad I have this oil because I thought ahead and I made it ahead. You can do that by like imbuing your ingredients ahead of time as well. When you've got energy, if you've absorbed an excess of energy and you feel really, really good, or if you've, you know, just had a really great laughing session with one of your best mates and you've got all this like energy within you, store it up within a container, store it up into a crystal, store it up into a candle, you know, bless a bunch of herbs, make an oil, like preserve that energy, bake that energy in like you're catching sunlight, right? Bake it in and then you've got it good to go. And yeah, you might need to give it a bit of an oomph with an activation when you get it out and start using it for the actual spell. But if you are able to pre-program things, then that is such a great tip for working this kind of strategic sorcery and magic that I'm touching on. Like I said, I didn't make a script for this video. I didn't plan anything because it was very much coming from a place of like, this is what I'm experiencing and I want to talk about this, like, because yes, we're talking about this within the community. Yes, we're talking about depression and anxiety and like overwhelm and burnout. I think they all come together for me, really. They all align. But like, it's like, when do we just have to say like, I can't, like I draw a line? And it, again, it comes back to like boundaries and boundary setting. And like over the years, I've had to write my boundaries, write them again, and then write them again, and then like memorize them, and then rewrite them again, because like someone will always come in and like left field, like, oh, okay, that's your boundary, well, and you're like, ah, I didn't think of that. Okay, back to the drawing board. So it's like a constant kind of thing that I consider to be part of that inner work, part of that kind of building up the power of the witch, building up your core essence of power and that self-actualization, that self-concept coming from within, making you this like really, really strong pillar that can't be fucked with, even if the outside looks like it can. Now, I'm a really compassionate person, I'm a sensitive person, I'm an emotional person, I have my heart open because it's just who I am, and people over the years see that, and I'm very much a target for their shit. I have experienced this so many times throughout my life, and it's only in the last 10 years that I've really learned to see it and recognize it for what it is. And it makes it so much easier, I'm telling you, to be like, oh, okay, that's what you're doing, bye-bye. Because honestly, there is no shortage of people who will try and screw you over or mess with you or project their crap onto you because they feel like shit, they feel worthless, and they look at you and they think you've got stuff, you've got a light, and they're like drawn to that, right? Don't allow others to make you feel like shit, because at the end of the day, you have you, okay? So it goes for like people IRL, but also like if you're watching social media and you hear something derogatory about an armchair magician, you're like, oh, well, you know, this is all very ableist actually, because I have this disability here and I'm reading an occult book, but is that not enough? Like I can't actually go and do that physical thing. I think a lot of authors are really good about this these days, about considering how accessible their tone is, but actually it's really inaccessible to be talking to people about being an armchair magician or being an armchair herbalist when they can't go out to the woods to do whatever connection with a particular plant, and they have to actually connect to that plant spirit as a dried herb at home, because that's the only accessibility they have to it. I'm really sick and tired of there being still that kind of idea within the occult sphere that if you are reading around occultism, you should be always doing everything you're reading. No, I don't think that's true. I've read a number of things that I don't practice, that aren't really relevant for my... I've read a number of books on traditions that are not aligned to my own, that I don't practice those things. Some of those things are like, oh, that's a nugget of wisdom. I like that. I'm going to take that. I'm going to let that marinate. Oh, that really resonates with me. Yes, I notice how I do that already in this part of my life. And you know, it really augments and it helps for me to expand my practice in that way, but not necessarily always directly. I'm not always expanding my experience in the way I read about it in that book just because that practitioner does it that way. As practitioners, we must look at things objectively and consider them from that perspective. That's somebody's work, that's someone's writing, and that's amazing, and they can do it that way, but that's not me necessarily, and that might not be you either, or you. And so, you know, we create a practice that is aligned to ourselves, but no more of this like armchair. I get it. There's scholars, of course, that are researching into occultism, but that don't practice. That's one thing. Then there's occultists who, yes, they read, but they don't really get into that position where they've done a lot. And Damien Eccles will speak to this really beautifully, and I get that too. But if you're someone who, like me and like a lot of other witches and occultists and practitioners I know, who is learning and growing, but also has has really limited resources. We need to have better language to discuss these things with, because it's so reductionist, it's so ableist, it's not okay. Who says being an armchair magician is that bad anyway? Because at some point, everyone's an armchair magician, because at some point, everyone who wants to do this, wants to learn about something, has to sit down and blooming read a book. You have to start from somewhere. Like, why are we kind of so quick to negatively label things, is what I want to know. And I think I go back to this book a lot, but the modern craft, like there are essays in there about inclusivity that are all about witchcraft and practicing the craft from many different perspectives, diverse opinions, and it's all about inclusive witchcraft, and it's so powerful. There is an essay at the end about approaching witchcraft from the perspective of someone who is disabled, and it is so powerful to just sit into someone else's perspective for a moment. I have a diagnosis of fibromyalgia. It is classified as a disability. I don't claim disability allowance. I've been told by some people that I should. I've also been told by other people that is a very hard thing to get, to claim. But I struggle to work, even though I work from home. I struggle to open my cat food sachet. I struggle to get out of bed. I struggle to walk sometimes. I struggle to sit in a chair. I'm sitting in a chair right now, but I've got a cushion. I struggle to sit in certain positions. I struggle to move around sometimes. When I have a flare-up, I am immobile and I struggle. And someone looking at me might not see that, might not understand that. And yes, I spent a lot of my life before that not experiencing that. So I can say, you know, I've had experiences in my life where I've been physically able for a long time. And so now coming to a place where I'm not, it's actually really hard. And it's also really hard when people don't see it. People don't see your disability and don't like understand that is your experience. And I've had that from people I know, I've had that from family members. And so having a diagnosis is really supportive, even if they don't get it. But even describing to my GP my sensations, how it feels, like I said, you know, when I'm experiencing like the pain flare-ups, the fatigue is kind of a lot more present, like all the time. It's always so hard. Sometimes the fatigue can feel so hard, it feels like you're walking through sludge. But the pain is again like a constant hum. But when you have a flare-up, it's like all your muscles and your bones are crumbling. I feel like I'm atrophying, like I'm sort of disintegrating. And this is what I said to my GP, and her face was like pretty shocked when I said this, but this is the experience, that it feels like every single cell of my body is vomiting at the same time, and I can almost picture it. It feels like my body is just purging all of this, like my cells are immobilized, can't move. And the experience of that, I have to tell you, it's made me reassess everything about my life and about my practice. And I'm here talking about my practice. I'm not really going to talk about other parts of my life, but I've had to say no to things. I've had to say no to a lot of things, and I've had to say no to other people. I've had to say no to myself, and I've had to strip things way back. So as much as I would love to do certain practices that I used to do and that I still consider to be part of my practice, right? Because maybe there will be a day when I can do those things. It's just maybe a little bit less frequently than others. But my practice, mainly my daily practice, involves a lot of prayer and communion with Lilith and with Mother Mary, and I also speak to Jesus. I sometimes will connect with the Holy Spirit and ask the Holy Spirit to fill me. I will connect with the divine, you know. And meditative practices, I have a lot less time for meditation these days, so it tends to be breath work, simple breath work, somatic practices for healing and releasing trauma. And then things like candle gazing, as I spoke about, utilising oils that are pre-made for glamour magic and for healing. I'm still utilising a tincture of white willow bark, and I still utilise my nettle tincture, and I still utilise my white willow bark oil. And then I have a number of magical oils as well that I use for anointing. Daily breath work, like I said, the somatic work, prayer in the evening, sometimes the rosary, connecting to Mother Mary, working with the Magdalene, Mary Magdalene, and it's very simple and straightforward. And I will also say that communing with family or friends who really love you, that is a spiritual act in itself as well. And so it's really just to say that having these experiences at this point in my life with small children, with the challenges that my daughter presents and struggles with herself and that we have to support her with, I'm so limited in resources because I am someone who has 2 small children. I have a full-time job. I work every day. I have limited time. I have a household to look after. I have chronic pain and chronic fatigue in the form of fibromyalgia. Physically, I have that block, and then as a result, obviously it impacts emotionally and mentally, and so there's that anxiety and depression aspect as well. And then yeah, dealing with the stuff that comes up with my daughter, which is daily, it is very, very hard on the system. And I feel like the trauma that has built up over years with physical issues that have come up for me, but also experiences that I've had with my family, with my daughter, things that I would never expect as a mother to experience and to have to make sense of, to have to understand, and to have to hold myself through. Because as a mother, I've had some thoughts and feelings that I never thought as a mother I would, and that brings you a lot of like guilt, I guess, and shame. And so holding myself through that as well, it's been like a massive, massive thing for me. And that's another reason why I'm such a huge proponent of that inner work, that self-work, but also then shadow work that comes along with strengthening your witch power and your sense of self, that core within, is so, so important for me because of that. So these are some of my thoughts that I have been mulling over. I wanted to share them. I'm sure that a lot of you can relate, because I know a lot of people have a number of reasons why they are limited in things that they are able to do, places that are able to access for whatever reason, for a number of physical reasons. I also, since sharing my fibromyalgia diagnosis, a lot of people have commented and shared with me some of their experiences, and so I thank you for that. And also, you know, after sharing about the neuro-divergence of my daughter, people are sharing with me about their experiences too, and I'm really grateful for that. And so that's why I keep doing this. That's why I'm here. I'm really, really grateful. I just wanted to share. This is my experience. So if you don't agree, that's fine. I've suggested some resources. This is by no means a comprehensive list, as much as I would love. That's one of the things, that's something I guess I always like wish that my video could be comprehensive and have everything in it, but it doesn't. But I do have a couple of other videos. I have a video on witchcraft and depression. I have a few other videos. I will just link in the cards and at the end. You can go and watch those if you like. There's a number of resources I suggested in there, but just explaining to you like how my practice is looking at the moment, the things that I have really been thinking about when it comes to having less energy and needing to be more strategic in timing and the ways in which spell work or magic is done, and how I practice, the daily practice, but also then how you can maneuver things, how you can work with timing, how you can work with different energies. You can plan ahead with astrology, for instance, of course, and harness the energies. But my problem is a full moon will actually often knock me out. I'll be knocked sideways. And even on a new moon, I'll be like, I've got a plan, but by the time the evening comes around, it doesn't work. So for someone like me at this point, I'm much more able to work with a full or a new moon or an aspect, for instance, if it's maybe a day or two before or after, and then I can probably make it work. But you don't have to be strict about these things, and that's what I'm trying to say. You know, cultivate a practice that's yours and nurture the seeds within you, and your practice will be beautiful. You don't need to pay attention to what other people are doing. You don't need to listen to what other people are saying to you if it doesn't resonate, if it doesn't align. And that goes for this as well. So if some of this resonates and the rest doesn't, that's fine. Go ahead and leave it, but know that this is just an offering from my experience, and I hope that it might resonate, and I hope that it might be helpful for some people, just to say, look, I've felt this and you're not alone. Other people I know have felt this, like, we're not alone in this. Let's just also think about the words that we're using, how accessible our language is, and how ableist sometimes some of these things can be. Let's just be careful with throwing around terms like armchair magician or armchair occultist. Like, let's just be careful with it. I think that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to share a little bit more about what I've been thinking about when it comes to the challenges that I've had and how my practice has changed and evolved due to that, but how very much I am still the witch that I am, and those things that I maybe can't do as frequently or as much or even at all anymore, or the things that I can't finish or the things that I can't start, that are still there, little whispers of like desires that I want to practice and I want to start, I want to venture into. They're still there, they're still part of me, but right now my priority is actually not my practice. But I don't want my practice to not be that. But reality is that my focus in life right now is raising my children to be the best they can, continuing to bring some money into my family, and to focus on my health. And those have to be my priorities. And I'm sure you have yours too. My practice is part of who I am, so my practice will never go. But there have been things that I've had to sacrifice within my practice that have been really sad for me. Not to let go of, but just to even put on the shelf is hard. To put some things on the shelf that I really just love doing, or I want to do more of, or I want to learn more about this particular thing, and I can't right now, and that's okay. Time is a factor, resources, energy, physical restrictions, mental restrictions, emotional restrictions. There's a lot of stuff going on in my life. The time of life I'm in, and I'm okay with that. And you know what, having that connection to the divine that I have, that's part of my paradigm and part of my spiritual practice, it's been the thing that's gotten me through. Being able to know that I'm part of the divine, that I'm held by the divine, and that I'm loved, and held, especially by Mother Mary. That nurturing energy has been so, so powerful and profound. So maybe that will resonate with some people, but I'm going to leave it there. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this has been healing, maybe it's been insightful or thought-provoking, I don't know. Please let me know below. I would love to hear your experiences. If you've got anything to share, please do. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, leave me a little candle emoji or a star, and yeah, I'd love to hear your experiences below as well. Do subscribe if you haven't already, share with anyone who you think would also enjoy. Hit the notification bell because subscribing won't always let you see everything I do. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you stay well and safe, and I look forward to seeing you again in another video really soon. Take care. Mwah. Many blessings.